What's going on, Washington fans? Welcome to the JTFB channel. I'm Josh Taylor, and I'll be breaking down everything you need to know this offseason. So hit that subscribe and like button while you're here checking out this video. And I'm going to be talking about a possibility that we could see happening this offseason when we talk about Adam Peters really building up this roster. I want people to just think for a second, and I've tweeted this out before. Everyone wants to get the top names, but we also have to think that we're not going to be signing every single top free agent. So we really have to take a step back and look at all the possibilities. And guys like T. Higgins, who is going to be franchise tagged from the Cincinnati Bengals, again, unfortunately, you just have to really think guys like Chris Godwin, guys like Myles Garrett. Like, think about some of these bigger name guys. Are we going to be able to get all of them? No. Is that saying that we won't make any big splashes? Absolutely not. I think we will. But then we also have to think about those tier 2, tier 3 splashes that we can make in free agency, where we look back, halfway at the end of the season, we're like, wow, that was actually a really good pickup. We got this player for a really good amount of money. It was a good deal. Turned out that it worked out perfectly. So this is something that's come up recently. Bill Barnwell from ESPN did a breakdown of wide receivers and stuff like that. So I just want to talk about the possibility of reuniting Kliff Kingsbury, Washington's offensive coordinator, with a familiar face in Christian Kirk, who is currently with the Jaguars. And he really broke it down here, gave a good little breakdown, but he listed Christian Kirk as a cut candidate for this offseason. We already see some teams releasing, making some cuts, freeing up some salary cap, stuff like that. But Christian Kirk did have a collarbone injury. In 2024, he only had 27 catches for 379 yards, 1 touchdown in the 8 games. He's going to be 28 this season coming up. But I really talked about how Kirk was a victim of his own success after a breakout season in 2021 with the Cardinals and Kliff Kingsbury. The Jags signed him to what was a stunning deal at the time. It honestly was. I was shocked. A 4-year, $72 million deal. Was a desperate move from the front office that just wanted to get solid receivers along. Trevor Lawrence playing in an every down role and running his 6th most routes of any wide receiver in 2022, and then racked up 1,108 yards and 8 touchdowns on a team that reached the playoffs. But as I mentioned, since then, Kirk has had 1,166 yards over the ensuing past 2 seasons, with injuries including a broken collarbone last October, limiting him to 20 games over that span. It just goes on to talk more about him and his role and everything like that. But I think he's a cut candidate for a couple reasons, but mostly is the Jaguars. They're going through a lot of changes and stuff like that. But then also just looking at his contract, if I zoom in here, as what was stated in the paragraph, 4-year, $72 million deal was crazy at the time. He has a cap hit of $24 million for the Jags next year. If you see right here, just ignore all these ads popping up. If they release Christian Kirk pre-June 1st, they'll end up saving $10.5 million. And if they wait until post June 1st release, it would go dead cap of 2025. You get to spread it out over 2 years, and they save even more money. So it'd go to 7.76 mil in 2025, and then 2026 would be 5.7 mil. So it just makes a lot of sense of why they would release him, whether it's pre-June 1st or it is after June 1st. But the bottom line is taking a look at the stats. When Kliff was there in 19, 20, 21, he was there 22 as well, but Kirk was already on Jacksonville in 22. But look at the stats, and I just want to point out a couple things. One, he went for 68 catches for 709 yards, 3 touchdowns in 2019, 48 catches, 621 yards, 6 touchdowns in 2020, and then had, one of his best season ending it out with the Cardinals, 77 catches for 982 yards and 5 touchdowns as primarily a slot guy. So I want people to think about that too. I'm not saying Christian Kirk is going to be your wide receiver 2 next year, but this is a guy who can just come in and be your starting slot wide receiver. And I know, like I said, this past year, he only played 8 games. The year before that, though, he missed a couple of games, had, 12 games, and still got 787 yards from the slot and 3 touchdowns. If I'm getting 700 to 800 yards and I'll say 4, 5, 6 touchdowns a year from my slot wide receiver, I'm feeling really good about that. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not expecting 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns every single season. Is that his ceiling? Sure. Was that 2 years ago? It was. But still, if I can get 750 to 850 yards out of my slot guy, like I said, 4 or 5 touchdowns, I'm sold on that. Especially, I don't know what the contract money would be like, but you have to think for Christian Kirk, coming to the downhill slope of his career now, being 28 years old, he's going to want someone that he can play for like he did with Kliff, where he, like I said, 19, 20, 21, when he had Kliff as his head coach. So I actually got to scout Christian Kirk in 2021 when I was doing the scouting academy, or maybe it was 2022. I think it was 2022, but we were looking at the 2021 film. So I got to see that last season and when he had Kliff Kingsbury, and I was a big fan of Christian Kirk. I was like, wow, there's, I think this is before he got his deal, but I'm like, or maybe it was like right around the time. I'm like, no wonder why he got that much money. I think he's super underrated. I was really impressed by what I saw from Christian Kirk, but then also I was impressed of how Kliff Kingsbury really used him out of that slot role as a bigger guy too. I mean, he's not tall, but he's like a stockier guy. They have him listed at 5'11", 200. I really liked his contact balance. Yards after catch ability was there for me. And I was just, go back to the yearly. I was just really impressed by what I saw from him. I think having that reunion is good for both sides. One, Washington only has 2 wide receivers under contract next season with Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey. So they need to add to the wide receiver room. Yes, this doesn't stop you from, maybe signing Debo if you want to go that route. And I think Debo gets released. I don't think he gets traded. Maybe you still go that route. This isn't stopping you from drafting a guy like Trey Harris or Jaden Higgins or someone like that. But I'm talking just strictly the slot position. So, like I said in the beginning, Chris Godwin would be nice. If it's not Tampa Bay, and a lot of people think he could come back to Tampa Bay, actually, you just have to think of the possibilities. I know this is a destination players want to come to now. Washington is a place where players want to go. We have a ton of money, but we're not going to just sign the top free agent at every single position. I think Christian Kirk playing under Kliff Kingsbury's offense and his style and his scheme and how he wants to really use him, then also having Jaden as his quarterback just helps elevate even more. I think it's a great pairing. I think this is a super under the radar kind of pairing. Like I said, we can talk about Chris Godwin. We can talk about like Darius Slayton. Debo can play in the slot too, plays outside a lot too. Christian Kirk doesn't play outside a lot. He's primarily an inside guy. About 3/4 of his snaps were from the slot. And that's honestly where I would want to keep him anyways. But just think about Terry and then Christian Kirk in the slot. And you can have Trey Harris outside. You can still go get Darius Slayton. If you want Stephon Diggs, whatever you want on the outside. This doesn't stop you from anything wide receiver 2-wise or wide receiver 3-wise, even, talking about depth at the X or the Z, whatever you want to do. This doesn't stop any of that. Your draft pick, I don't care. The only thing that could hinder it is if like Luther Burden or someone that's primarily a slot guy is going to be there in the draft, which I don't see him being at 29 anyways. So you have to think about the possibilities. Who out there could be a good option for you in the draft? If you want a slot guy, Jalen Noel, you have Tez Johnson. There's a couple of little slot guys that I do like, but I just think having that familiar face, not drafting 2 wide receivers. This isn't the craziest wide receiver draft anyways. It just gives you an opportunity to bring a familiar face paired up with your offensive coordinator and a quarterback that can help elevate him get back to that. Like I said, I'm not asking for 1,000 yards from him. That's asking too much. But if you can get me this and add on like another touchdown or 2, I'm fine with that. I think the contract would be very favorable. It's not going to be like that lucrative deal he just got. Like I said, I don't have an exact number that comes to mind, but if I had to guess, you probably give him a 2. I don't know if I would do a 3-year deal, probably like a 2-year deal, something like that, just because he is 28. You have an out after next season in the contract. If things are going well, then he sticks around for that second year, whatever it is. But I think when you want someone that is a veteran, that has the experience, that knows Kliff's offense, and that excelled in his offense in that slot role, that's a home run for me. This doesn't stop you from getting that wide receiver 2 that you really want from him. Like I said, this past year, people are like, oh, the injuries. It's a collarbone. It's not like he has a busted hammy. It's not like he's dealing with, torn ACL, nothing like that. For me, having a collarbone injury, I can work with that. Let this man get a full off season. I'm not too concerned about it. I did just want to look at his premium stats real quick just to show y'all snaps and where he lines up at. This is 24. Let's go 23. So 23, he had 393 snaps from the slot, 188 out wide. So like I said, primarily slot guy. 2022, he was in the slot a lot, 754 snaps on the slot and 335 out wide. So just gives you an idea of what you can expect from him. I just think that he would fit perfect. Do I want to go out and get all of these crazy free agents like T. Higgins, who's getting franchise tag? Chris Godwin would be really good inside. You have the question about that ankle injury, but 3-year, $20 million a year. Are you willing to give Chris Godwin a $60 million guarantee? Contract with $40 million guarantee. But then you have like these tier 2 guys, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, and these are all outside guys. Marquise Brown's another guy who could get reunited with Kliff Kingsbury. But I'm talking strictly from that slot role. I think Luke McCaffrey can have more of a role next year too, but I'm not so sure about just throwing him out there and saying, Luke McCaffrey, you're going to be the starting slot guy this year. Like, hey man, I know you've only been playing wide receiver for 3 years now, if you count his rookie year in the NFL, which is crazy, but man, we need you to be that slot guy. So you're going to start next year. I'm just not okay with that. I'm not okay with expecting, putting that on Luke McCaffrey. Not saying he won't have a role, because I think he will. But once again, guys, we don't have many wide receivers. Terry and Luke are the only 2 on contract next year. I think we bring back 2 wide receivers, maybe 3. I could see guys like De'Ami Brown going somewhere for a little bit more money. I could see Noah Brown coming back. I could see Olamide Zaccheaus coming back. I think those are the 2. I'm not saying prioritize, but I think those are like the 2 likely. And then, so you have Terry, Luke, and then let's just go ahead and sign the 2 back, Noah Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, because they're familiar faces and they were already in the offense and they produced. Then you have Christian Kirk, that's 5. Like I said, that's your slot guy. And then say you get Trey Harris in the draft, that's 6. And then you could always do a cheap signing. Let's just take Westbrook-Akine. I like him too. That's your 7 wide receivers. I'm fine with that. I think Trey Harris is going to be a really good outside guy, but strictly for this video, and I'm going to do wide receiver options. Don't worry. We've got some time. I'm going to do wide receivers for the draft and free agency as well, which obviously things will change after free agency if we, go get a guy like Chris Godwin, or maybe we go get Darius Slayton or whatever. But for the sake of this video, Christian Kirk in the slot for me is a no-brainer. You're not going to go get every single top free agent from every position, like Khalil Mack, DJ Reed, like Ronnie Stanley. Like, I promise you, we're not signing all 3 of those guys and Chris Godwin, or like somehow getting T. Higgins, which we'd have to trade 2 first-round picks for, which I'm not doing that. But I just want y'all guys to think Adam Peters isn't going to squeeze the salary cap dry by the end of free agency. That's not what he does. Now, you could free up more money with guys like Wiley and John Allen, and I dropped a video on that as well, so recommend everyone going to go watch that. But for me, I'm waiting for Christian Kirk to get cut, and then I'm saying, hey, man, come over here. We'll get you on a good 2-year deal, nothing too crazy. And I think you'll thrive in this offense. We got Jaden, by the way, and we go get another really good outside wide receiver, whether that's Amari Cooper, Darius Slayton, or, like I said, Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, whoever you want. Emeka Egbuka at 29 if he falls, whatever. I'll cross that bridge very soon. But this fills in a big need for you, and it's, in my opinion, very cost effective. And I think the payoff is worth what you would be paying out for Christian Kirk. So hope you all enjoy this short video about Christian Kirk and filling in that slot role for Washington. Hit that subscribe and like button, and then drop your thoughts below in the comments section as always. And I'll see y'all next time here on the JTFB channel. Peace.